What's up guys, welcome to the tutorial video on an unequipping and equipping system inspired by Genshin Impact. This system is my own system. It's gonna be a very basic one. We're gonna have some VFX and some systems that might be different, might be similar, but it's gonna be a relatively simple one. It can be easily implemented to any projects you have. The entire system is quite self-explanatory, so let me show you what we're making. So right here I have a character who has his weapon unequipped right now. If I click my left mouse button, he will attack. And as you can see, I can perform multiple attacks. It's the same attack, but if you have your own combo system, it works the same exact way. But once I stop attacking and it reaches the reset state, the sword detaches from the hand and then it reappears on the back. And so if the sword is detached from the arm and I click again, the sword will still appear back into my hand. So right here, it detaches and I can still equip it back as needed. But if I don't do any other actions that require the blade, it just unequips itself and reattaches itself to the back. Like so. All the animations are paid. They will not be included into the project. But if you guys still want access to the project, join my Patreon. The VFX will be included in the Patreon project, but I won't be showing you how to make that from scratch, as VFX is not my thing and it was difficult for me to make personally, so I don't think I can build it from scratch. Without further ado, let's get started. So I have the third person project opened up. I imported the sword animation by 9CG along with some VFX that I've made myself. So let me give you a basic rundown what we'll be doing and what we'll be needing. So we will really only need the sword mesh from the pack, but we might also use some of the animations for some demonstrations. But in general, just a weapon of some sort and you're good to go. As for the VFX, I made these off camera. I don't know if I can actually replicate them on screen on WoW, like from scratch. But in general, VFX is my type of thing, and it took me a lot of time and trial and error to get this thing working the way I wanted. I had to reach out to some of my friends and see if they know how to do this, and so this is what they gave me. It's quite simple, they said, but in general, let me give you a basic rundown. It's apparently a burst instantaneous, and it spawns these little spheres that form or take form in some sort of skeletal mesh. I don't have a skeletal mesh, so that's why the preview editor is empty, but let me get one from the weapon that we'll be using, and then I'll show you what it looks like. So the thing about the VFX is it requires a skeletal mesh. As you can see, this sword is a static mesh, and so we need to actually re-import this. But first we need to export it. So if you right click and go to asset actions, we can actually export this. Once you export, you'll be asked to save it to a directory, and then you can it'll give you some settings on how you want to export it. Just choose the settings that you wish. But my default settings are always been the default ever since day one. So I'll export this and I'll re-import it, and I'll show you what you should be seeing. So this should be the screen that you should get when you import the FBX of the weapon. And so at the very top, as you can see, it says skeletal mesh. That's what we need. If we check that and hit import all, we will get some errors, but don't worry about it. We don't really need to worry too much about these errors, as we just need the mesh. As long as it looks like the weapon we exported, we are perfectly okay. Right here, let's make a folder just to better organize this, as we did get a bunch of assets that I don't think we completely need, but let's just keep them just for insurance. So now that the assets were moved, let's open up the Niagara emitter, and inside the mesh reproduction, let's select our sword here, sword mesh, and we're gonna need some CPU errors. We're gonna get some CPU errors. We just click this fix now and it does it on its own. It fixes it on its own, and we should get something like this. Again, these VFX I made off camera, but if you guys want these VFX, I'll leave them in the project for my Patreon. So if you come Patreon and you download this project, you'll get 100% access to this. I'm just showing you how you can make your own and get your own weapons to look like this. So if you have your own VFX, that's cool too. Now I also have some Niagara systems, and these systems are kind of like child classes of the emitter, similar to how we had like materials and material instances. So if I open this up, we should, let me compile and apply this real quick. And right here we have a gold. I just changed the color here, not much else that changed. On the second one though, I did change the speed. So as you can see, it just comes in and it disappears quickly. And we'll be using these two VFX to visualize the unequipping and equipping system. So now that we got the VFX, let's get into the actual coding part. So I'm going to open a third person character here. And the first thing we need to do is actually add some weapon sockets to the character. So let's do that. Open the skeletal mesh and let's search for spine. Spine's right here. Let me add a socket. Call this the unequip socket. Let's add a preview mesh. Call it the sword. We will actually be using our skeletal mesh that we imported earlier instead of your typical static mesh, because when we spawn the VFX, we're actually going to spawn it attached to our weapon. But if we try to attach it to a static mesh, the VFX won't play. So that's why we need a skeletal mesh. And if we attach a skeletal mesh, a Niagara system to a skeletal mesh, it would actually play. So let's get this sockets all set up and let me show you what I mean. Alright, I got the unequipping socket. Now let's work on the equipping socket. And make a socket. Call it the equip socket. Let's add a preview mesh. This should do for now. So let's get into the coding section. So right here in the begin play, we'll actually attach and unattach the weapon. Let's select our character mesh and add a skeletal mesh. And in the skeletal mesh, let's add our weapon. And here, let's make a brush on begin play. And we're gonna make a Boolean variable called is equipped. And if we are equipped, we should equip the weapon. If not, we shouldn't be. So let's make two functions. Call the first one unequipped, the next one equipped. So let's drag in unequipped. We should check this, and then we should attach our skeletal mesh or our weapon to our character. So attach component to component, and then the parent should be our character mesh. Socket name, equip socket. Then snap to target. Make sure all these transform rules are snap to target or it won't attach correctly. In the unequip system, it will be the exact same, but just some of the value variables and inputs will change is all. Uncheck this, and the socket name should be unequip socket. And here in the event graph, we should pull the equipped and unequipped. So if we are equipping, we should equip the weapon. If we are not, we should unequip. So currently our variable is false, so we should unequip it. So we should see the weapon attached to the character's back. So if we play, see the weapon is attached to the back. If I set the variable to true, then the weapon is attached to the front. So it's working great. Now the next thing we're going to do is make like a basic attacking and root state system. I've covered this in my other videos, so if you have your own, feel free to use that. Make left mouse button. And so this is just going to be a very basic system. So here we're just going to make a branch. And then make another variable is attacking. If you're not attacking, then we should play an attack animation. But before we do that, we should actually equip the weapon. And then we should play a montage. So play animation montage. Now let me grab one of the animations retargeted. So let's grab attack, let's grab combo 1 here. grab an attack from a number wave. Okay, this one. Right click, retarget animation. We should have one that comes with the engine. UE for Manny to UE5. I'm just gonna retarget that to the content folder, and we're gonna make an montage and score attack. Make sure root motion is enabled, and let's add this into our play on a montage, and it should be working. So here, if we click, it's working. For some reason, it's still able to move. Nah, wrong input. It should be enable root motion. There you go. So we can still spam the input. So right here, we should make sure we change the variable to true. Also, we'll need actually search this to montage play montage, and then on completed we can clear this value. And right here we should put in our montage, so we won't be able to spam this anymore. Skeletal mesh component with this, there you go. I think that'll do it. Go, and once it's completed I can do it again. So on completed, so this basically is kind of like a reset state. So if you have a reset state or like an add notify, you would call this the functions here, but for simplicity I'm just gonna make it simple. I'm gonna make another function called reset state. Highly recommend using your own if you already have one. So in the reset state, we'll essentially just unequip the weapon if the character isn't doing anything. So let's set a timer by function name. And so let's make another function. Let's call it unequip with particles. So here we're actually gonna call the unequip function, and then we play a VFX here. So spawn system attach. We're gonna do the we'll do this one right here, the slower version. So let me show you. It's the slower version, and let's attach it to our weapon, and let's give that a go. Let's see how it looks. Actually, we need to fill this timer inputs. So let's give it the timer name, and let's give it the duration of, let's call this function at here, so reset state. So if we attack, the weapon should appear guide. Okay, so before we actually unequip the weapon though, I want the weapon to detach from itself and then unequipped. So on reset state, we're actually gonna have the weapon detach from the character, and then after a timer goes off, it attaches itself to the back. So here we're actually gonna switch this to the quick, as this one's gonna be called later. Right here we're gonna set another timer. So let's delete this and let's set another timer. Set the timer by event, and we're gonna set this one to 1 second thought, let's just make a custom event here. Call it detach on reset. Basically it'll detach the skeletal mesh from our player when we aren't performing anything. So here let's just set detach from component. We're gonna keep world position, so keep world for all of them. Then we should spawn an effect here, so spawn system attached, and let's spawn the slower version. So spawn the slower version, attach this to this component, and we actually want to make sure no collisions are on this thing. Yep, so no collision. Right here on reset we should detach on reset, and then here we can make a set timer, the function name, unequipped particles, make that 1 second, and then yeah, let's give that a roll. So if we click, we detach, and then it reattaches itself. So detaches and it attaches. So now if you're doing like successional attacks, like attacks over attacks, like buffering them, we're gonna actually use like an auto notifying. So let me make that to demonstrate. So let me open up with this third person character, and let's make an auto notify. So notify, this one's gonna be reset attack. So right here we're also gonna need another one, so let's duplicate this, called reset state. So on reset attack, we're just gonna on receive notify, get owner, and then cast third person character, and then we want to just set the is attack, set is attacking, and we want to set that to false. Now if you have like a save attack system, like an attack buffer, you would use that here instead. Pull that up, take this true, in the reset state we'll make another function here, so call it reset state, which we already have one, so we can just call that function get owner, cast the third person character, and then reset state. Take that true, pull that from here. Okay, now in the animation montage, we will add these montages and notifies to it. Right here, let's add the reset attack right here, and then on reset state right around here. So once we reset state, it detaches from itself, and if we do have like successional attack, we need to clear any timers that are currently running. So let's clear, the only timer we have running is for the unequipped particles, so it's clear timer, our function name, let's just paste that in, and now let's give this a roll. So we do continuous attacks, the sword continues to stay equipped. Once we stop, weapon disattach, and it reattaches onto the character's back, and if we attack again, character equips the sword, continue attacking, and the weapon will not detach, but once we reset state, it does so. Boom. And the VFX for this is a lot longer, so once we actually do, so if you want to set the timer longer, you would want to extend the lifetime for the VFX to match it, but it's okay if it goes, if it's longer. Once the mesh moves, so does the VFX. As you can see, so everything's working. Now most of these functionalities can be improved upon if you have, like, we don't need this no more. Like, you can make functions if you have your own system. This can be easily implemented. Montage. And I'm using like very basic reset states and reset attack systems. So if you have your own buffer system, reset state, and notify systems, use those. This is just a very basic system just to get you a general idea of how this can be made. So even while the weapon is detached, the weapon will still move. And once we don't do anything, it unequips itself. So everything's working. So if you guys want the project files, you can join me on Patreon. Get these project files for yourself. and I'll see you guys in another video.